All right, let's do it live on a Tuesday edition of Cleveland Browns Daily. I am merely Beau. He is the great Z. How you living, buddy?
I'm doing well, man. I'm doing well. Got, ready for a little break coming up here, but I'm going to give you everything
Car
I got
started.
today. I'm going to leave it all on the airwaves today. I woke up
I
today
used to say to my-
I was doing extra calisthenics just to give you my best effort.
I used to tell my high school basketball coach, look, dude, you're getting 18-8 rolling off the bus. Anything other than that is a win. Like that's where you're at. That's you. So when you tell me you're getting a 54-5, I'm thinking it's 24, it's 24-6 and 6. We're going to shoot 48% from 3. We're going to hit half our threes. That's rolling off the bus. You know, normally our scenarios are much higher, but that's just because of the standard you've set.
We're like
that's
Russ.
the minimum requirement here.
That's right. But I'm good, man. I'm ready.
Have you seen the we got a lot to get to. I want to have a little fun out of the gates, though. On May the 4th, as you know, were you, as a child, were you huge Star Wars as a kid?
Definitely.
You were?
Yeah.
Yeah. I was not. It was something that I remember seeing, but it wasn't anything I did not. They were not the toys of choice. It was not
for me,
something,
yeah. I remember when I got an X-wing for Christmas one year. Oh boy, I was pumped. I got my.
That's a big. Yeah, that was it.
I got my Darth Vader, Tall, Dark, and Evil
Careful
T-shirt
there.
on today. It's great.
Oh, that's good. It's very good. It's very good. Yeah, that's very good. Did we discuss? Have we discussed how much that particular reveal has been ruined for this generation?
I feel like maybe on last May the 4th. It is sad. It is sad.
Was it?
Yeah.
Was it a year ago that we had this conversation?
It could have been, or 2 years. Who knows?
I think it could have been.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because you can't, for the kids, you can't put into perspective how big of a reveal that was and the feeling that you had when you saw that. And for my kids, when we watched it, there was nothing. Almost no reaction. Kind of like, well, yeah, of course. We know that. We know that, Dad.
Yeah.
We know who he is. Well, that sucks because that was a big deal, man. You left the theater reeling. Or I guess I probably saw it on VHS. You were like, I remember just hitting stop. Wait, what?
It was
devastating. You got to be kidding me. Yeah. You couldn't wrap your head how big of a bad Darth Vader was. I remember Bootsy, even when he was like 2 or 3, like he would dress up as Darth Vader. Like loved him like as a hero.
Yeah.
But for me, he was the epitome of evil. You couldn't be more evil.
No, he was. He was the ultimate bad.
Yeah. The biggest bad of all time.
Of all time.
Which is your favorite of those movies?
I mean, I loved Return of the Jedi as a kid because the Ewoks were so great. I think, like, looking back, I still think Empire Strikes Back is my favorite just movie on its own.
It's amazing on that one
from
how
those
it really
three,
doesn't.
From those three, yeah.
Yeah. I would say for a couple of things, I would say that one, even all these years later, absolutely holds up.
Yeah.
Like, I watched it for the first time in probably 30 years last year during quarantine with the boys, and it's a sprint. It is an absolute sprint. And even take away the fact that the reveal happens at the end, it still provides you everything that you'd want. And I like Jedi more as a kid too, but now think that Empire is probably the better one. What do you think you think the first 3 or the last 3 are better? Of the prequels and then the eventual
The original
sequels.
3 are the best.
No, leave the originals out.
Oh.
The prequels or the sequels?
The sequels, the next 3, 7, 8, 9 are better than 1, 2, 3.
I do feel like they're.
One's terrible.
Feel like the. What's that?
1 is terrible.
Yeah, 1's bad, and the 1 is really grim. I do feel like they kind of Game of Thrones the ending of it a little bit on the sequels.
But where was it going to go? Like, this one was, you knew where you were getting to, and I think they gave you some nice twists along the way. You knew what you were getting, but you didn't, the lineage was not something that was clear from the very beginning, and so I think it worked out. In that sense, it worked out pretty well. But the first 3, 3 is good, but Hayden Christensen is so bad. I mean, it's all-time bad acting. It's
Sofia Coppola in Godfather 3.
It's
like
unreal.
Sometimes you cast, you just miss it, and it throws everything off the rails, and that's it. Like it's amazing that they came to that conclusion. I can't imagine how coveted that role was.
Oh.
And if you don't land the plane on it, it derails. You're stuck for 3 sequels of it. It's a tough spot, man.
It's wild.
Absolutely, it's a tough spot. All right, so enjoy your May the 4th. Time to get to the OBM Hot Topics. Ohio Business Machine, preferred copy provider, your Cleveland Browns. They have all the X's and O's for your office. You can call 216-485-2000 or visit ohiobusinessmachines.com. Nice to have Coach on with us yesterday.
He's great.
At the end of the show for the last 15 minutes of the show.
Yeah, very fun.
Yeah, really, and one thing we noticed, and you and I did Browns Live, what was it, Thursday? I can't even remember.
Thursday night.
The days start to run. I can't imagine how they do for you. Thursday night, yeah. And was just a really relaxed, very, 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 very comfortable where he was and with the plan, and it was all executed. We added the 4th P yesterday on the show. But you just got that feeling as well, and you get the feeling that he can't wait to coach this team.
Why would he want to wait? Of course he doesn't want to wait. Joe Woods doesn't want. Nobody in this building wants to wait. It's exciting. This is an exciting thing. And as Andrew Berry, though, has said, and we'll have the interview that I did with him yesterday, it is a kind of an incredible thing in terms of, it's great on paper, and we can all let our imaginations run wild, but we want to see it, and we want to see these guys bond, and we want to turn this into reality.
Yeah, and that's the tough part. I mean, but I take that back. The tough part is what they've done. The tough part is acquiring the talent. That's the hardest part. Usually, like talent, it's in many instances it equates, and it does start to row in the same direction pretty quickly because everybody wants the same things. This is a non-guaranteed contract league. When you have something special, usually it comes together very quickly. Look at Tampa Bay last year. Was it a little rough out of the gates? Yeah, but once they hit that bye week, then they were humming, and they were a steamship going forward. And I'm not suggesting necessarily you're going to go win the Super Bowl next year, but that ought to be the goal. And that the expectation ought to be to win the division. The expectation ought to be in the AFC Championship game. You look at around the league, and I know we'll do a little better or worse in the power rankings coming up here in the second hour of the program, but there's not one that I've read that doesn't have us in the top 5 or 6 from a talent standpoint. Not one. And most have us second in the AFC or right there with Buffalo for second in the AFC. So that's the reality of the talent.
We should be. And yeah, it's Kansas City, Buffalo, us, and Baltimore have been dubbed the top 4 teams in the AFC.
I don't see Baltimore.
I don't see it as much, but listen,
I don't.
I
know they've had success.
That's good every year.
We have to respect them.
They're good every year.
Yep, they're good all the time, but I think we're on a different level than they are on talent. You got to put it together, of course, but just in terms of the talent that's there. And I feel the same way about Pittsburgh. You respect them. They've been good for so long, but objectively you look at the roster, and it's to me it's just not there. So there will be pressure that comes with this, and that was the front of ESPN.com this morning when I was taking a look around and see what was going on. With the headline, the number one story of the headline was, can the Browns handle the pressure? And that was it. That's something that we're going to have to get used to over the course of this offseason. My guess is we're pretty equipped to it. And I think we'll learn from 19 as well. I know that there are a lot of people obviously still here, many new faces, new staffs, so forth. But I think there will be a lot of lessons that were learned from 2019 that will apply very, very nicely here. This from Adam Schefter yesterday. Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah had a heart issue that came up late in the process and was a concern for most teams, which is why he fell out of the first round and was there at 52 for us per sources. Doctors ultimately cleared Owusu-Koramoah, and but it did contribute to him falling. Did you ask AB about this? Will we have this in the interview?
We did not ask him about that at the time. I know that our doctors have cleared him, and ultimately he was cleared by everybody. So it's not an issue, and the Browns have said numerous times that they feel very good about his health, and there are no concerns that it will impact his playing at all.
Yeah, and there was a lot of ambiguity with that in the lead up to the draft, that there would be conflicting medicals that potentially could, just because there was no combine, and so there wasn't that, even with something as important as medicals. There can be a groupthink thing that can happen in the NFL, and that didn't happen. So different teams have different thresholds, but cleared by the entire NFL and obviously cleared by us, and you feel very good about having him on the roster. It was cool to see him. I saw the little clip of the Building the Browns, which I think will air. Is that air Sunday?
Sunday.
With the clip of him picking the number?
Yep.
Yeah. How did you read that when he said no singles? That he didn't want a single or that he couldn't get a single? How did you read that?
I was confused. I didn't know if it was he had been told singles are not an option, so he was saying, don't show me singles, or if he was saying, I'm not interested in a single because I was 6 and 6 is spoken for.
Yeah, and then he clarified on social and he said 28, 8 minus 2 equals 6. But I didn't get that. That was a pay attention to the scores moment that I was trying really hard to pay attention to the scores.
We should have asked Stefanski
like,
that yesterday, but we were having too much fun.
I always feel weird. Like, my guess is Stefanski doesn't care about any of that. So, like, I'm thinking he'd say, you two idiots, this is why you're uncoachable, asking me about numbers. You think I care about what numbers these guys wear?
True. But he did care because I remember Joe Thomas had said that, Jed could wear 73 if he wanted, and Stefanski said, I think you're going to be 71.
Yeah. So what I do wonder about is if what I'm curious about is if the numbers have been spoken for, if the singles digits have been spoken
That's
for.
That's very possible that the vets next year have said, no, we're going to come back and we're going to get some of these when we don't have to pay $1.5 million to do so, which would make sense. But we did have.
That's what I wondered if teams would do.
But didn't Greg Newsome? Didn't he get in the dose? You said that yesterday.
Is he wearing one?
I don't know.
I thought I saw that he was wearing 2. Yeah.
Schwartz is 10. That we know, but beyond that, I don't really know. I don't know. We'll get the info when it all comes out.
That's not till they sign, right? When the rookies can actually get their numbers assigned, like officially, like on the roster. Obviously, Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah is going to wear 28, but in terms of when we see it on the roster, it won't be till they sign the contracts, right?
Correct. And there'll be an official number thing. Although we saw with JOKs, it's just more of when they officially assign the numbers. And remember, these things can change as the rosters shake out as well. As people would remember,
Nick Chubb.
Chubb, Jabril Peppers, that happens.
I remember, one of my boys has a Chubb rookie card with him in 31, I believe.
Yep,
and there was
exactly
great confusion over that. So those things can happen. Also on Monday, we agreed to terms with undrafted free agents. We talked about Marvin Wilson on the show yesterday, and he's the defensive tackle out of Florida State. Also added to that mix, Trey Harbinson out of Charlotte, Romeo McKnight out of Charlotte, Emmanuel Rugamba out of Miami, Rugamba, and Keondae Thomas out of Kansas State. So those guys also in the mix. And then the other one, and this would be one who's familiar, if you're familiar with Big Ten football, would certainly add up. Malik McDowell, the defensive tackle out of Michigan State. He was a 5-star kid.
Yep.
Out of the Detroit area. Was a dominant player at Michigan State and originally selected by Seattle in the second round of the draft. Has not appeared in an NFL game, missed his entire rookie year after being involved in a motor vehicle accident, placed him on the non-football injury reserve list before being waived by Seattle in 2018. He has had some trouble off the field, but he has worked very hard to get back to where he is. The organization is comfortable where he is, and he's just 24. So there's a tremendous mix here of you've earned this shot, we believe in you, and there's a lot of talent here that could be mined.
Of course, and here's what Andrew Berry said. We are certainly aware of Malik's past, as we have done extensive work on him for the last 2 months. He is accountable for his actions and has had to live with the consequences for decisions earlier in his life. We believe Malik is in a good place personally and medically. He has taken the necessary steps to get on a healthy path and has learned from his experiences. Malik understands the expectations we have of him as he attempts to make our football team. He is committed to taking advantage of the support network in place to become the best version of himself both on and off the field, and we will support him as he attempts to make his return to football. And the Browns were not done in that defensive tackle room. They just signed Damien Squire, who is a 9-year veteran who spent the past 7 seasons with the Chargers, appearing in 81 games with 24 starts, has not missed a game in each of the past 4 seasons, former undrafted free agent out of Alabama. His best season was in 2018, started 11 games for the Chargers, 3 sacks, 31 tackles, 3 passes defense. Last year, 20 tackles and a sack. And so now you look at this defensive tackle room. When we were talking about, we had 4 going into the draft total on the roster. Now there are 8. You've got Andrew Billings, Jordan Elliott, Malik Jackson, Sheldon Day, Tommy Togiai from the draft, Marvin Wilson, the undrafted free agent, Malik McDowell, and now you added in Damien Squire. That's 8 guys. That's all of a sudden a lot of competition. Squire's been in the league a long time. Malik McDowell's got a ton of talent. Wilson's got a ton of talent. Togiai was just drafted. Sheldon Day's been in the league 5 or 6 years. So that's going to be another insane competition to watch this offseason.
Yeah, and how many of them?
That's 8. And maybe they keep 4.
How many are we going to have? You got
4.
You have a 53.
4 at the most. 4. I think 4 is pretty standard.
Yeah. So it's a really full room with a lot of talent and a lot of swings at the at-bat. And as you said yesterday, probably means the end of Sheldon Richardson here, at least for this year, obviously, on a potential of his return. But it's an absolutely loaded room. So, look, there's a lot to get to on this front. We will go around the league. Going to have a little fun. Dane Brugler will join us. By the way, I saw Dane already had a mock draft for next year out and ready. And so never stops for him. He will join us in 2:30 as we kind of go through some of these undrafted free agents and kind of how the draft shook for us by the time all was said and done. He'll join us at 2:30. We'll do a little better or worse coming up as well. Coming up next, though, the interview that Nathan and the guys did from the draft preview show with our general manager, Andrew Berry. You have that to look forward to, which is nice. Off and running here on a Tuesday. Cleveland Browns Daily, 850 ESPN Cleveland. Beau Bishop here for my friends at Weather Seal Home Services. Need a roof replacement? Would you like to replace your roof for the last time? Well, that's the benefit of choosing a metal roof from Weather Seal. Metal roof technology, materials, styles, and colors have improved significantly. They are beautiful, nearly indestructible, and affordable. Plus, with a new metal roof, Weather Seal includes a 6-inch gutter upgrade and up to 7 years, 0 interest on the financing. That's right, 7 years, 0 interest on the financing. Call my guys, 877-351-SEAL, or visit WeatherSealHomeServices.com. Last night on the draft preview show, Nathan went one-on-one with Andrew Berry. Let's have a listen.
AB,
you guys are down.
You will never forget for a variety of reasons, but let's start with the family. How is Eden Ruth doing? How is your wife? How is kind of everybody adjusting to this new addition? Forget the new Cleveland Browns, the new addition in the Berry household.
Yeah, well, first of all, thanks for asking, Nate. Everybody is healthy, happy at home. We had our first pediatrician appointment this week. Everything went well. So, Brittany and Eden, they're both doing well. And she's actually sleeping pretty well for the most part for these first couple of days.
So I like to hear a team player. She's coming in as a team player. You like to see that. That's what we want. People that fit right in to the team. And you got a lot of those this weekend. You most certainly did. And let's kind of just walk through this draft. Starting round one, Greg Newsome, the second, the corner out of Northwestern. And I love what Depot said about him. He was scheme agnostic. This is a guy that is just a flat out good cornerback, no matter how you slice it. How did you kind of let that first round fall to you? Were there thoughts of, saying maybe we need to be more aggressive to go get our guy? And ultimately you didn't have to do anything and you were able to get Greg Newsome.
Honestly, in round one, there were a group of players that we liked at the 26th pick. We did talk about, moving around the board up and down, really leading up into Thursday night. But as the board fell really in the early and mid-teens, we felt pretty comfortable sitting where we were because there were a number of players that we liked that we thought would get to us when we were there. Now, that being said, Greg was one of the players that we targeted. We weren't entirely sure if he would make it that far to us in the first round, and we were elated when he did. So it was a pretty easy decision for us to turn in the card.
So you bring in Greg Newsome, and then now we go to day two, and that's where things get interesting. You started the day with the 2 third-round picks as well as the second pick, number 59. You ended up not picking one of those third-round picks, which helped you pick at number 52. And I want you to walk through the poise, because I imagine when there's somebody that you think is special, and for you to move up, I know that you thought Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah was a special player. How do you weigh, when do I jump in? Beau and I were joking earlier today on Browns Daily, if this was like a fantasy draft and we really want that guy, let's just go get him. We're going up there and we're being reckless and crazy, but that's why you're running the organization, and we're all very happy for it because you are so poised and you were able to get a guy that you had in the discussion at 26, and you didn't even lose a pick. You just moved from the third into the fourth.
Yeah, I mean, I think a big part of it is like we always seek value, whether we sit and pick or whether we move up or down the board. And in Jeremiah's case, there was really a certain range where if we fell there, we thought that, we would be able to have a shot to negotiate a deal with the teams in that range that would, be at a pricing level that we were comfortable with relative to the prospect at hand. We called a couple different teams in that range. Finally we found a partner in Carolina who was, willing to move back at pricing that we were comfortable with, and we were able to strike a deal and ultimately get Jeremiah. And obviously, we're all very excited about his potential in our defense.
So, is it kind of a peek behind the curtain? When you call, do people say, "Well, who do you want?" I mean, I would want to know. I would be like, Andrew Berry's interested in something. What am I missing here? Is that how do those discussions go? And how many calls did you have to make before you got somebody who said, "Yeah, we will move with you at the price you're willing to move"?
So we ended up contacting, I want to say it was either three or four teams around that range. Typically speaking, people don't ask who you want. It's really more about, hey, are you interested in moving back to 59? If so, this is what we're thinking. And then really throughout the next several picks, there's a little bit of a negotiation in terms of what their expectations are for the move versus your own. And so, in our case with Carolina, basically maybe 1 or 2 picks before they were on the clock, we agreed to terms, again, contingent upon our guy being there. And then we touched base, once they were on the clock, and, both sides felt comfortable, called it into the league, and then ultimately called Jeremiah, made the pick, and, kept it moving.
So when you have that in place, and as you said, it's 1 or 2 picks, I would be pacing around the room. I imagine you are just like you are right now, cool as a cucumber.
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, so this is my 13th draft. So you're kind of used to how things go, situations where a guy goes off the board or a deal falls through, and then you've seen several others where the deal's actually consummated. So if it hadn't been Jeremiah, we would have been ready to pick at 59 and pleased with the group of players that were there. But obviously, we're excited to get a guy that we think can be a very good football player for our organization.
Absolutely. It's exciting. And so, you move on here into the third round. And I think, I remember talking to you after that Kansas City game, and one of the words we saw from their offense and made it so it was speed. And you said, okay, yeah, speed. Let's get the fastest guy in this draft. Anthony Schwartz, world class. I mean, legitimately has the medals to prove it and the accolades, world class speed. What drew you guys to Schwartz beyond his speed, and how do you envision him kind of fitting in this offense in that receiver room?
Yeah, I think it's just how a couple things. So on the field, it's how Anthony utilizes his speed, because it's one thing to be fast, but that trait has to be playable in a way that impacts the defense. He's able to use his speed. He's going to be a very good vertical separator at our level, but he also uses that speed when he has the ball in his hand. So he's a guy who we think can create after the catch because he is so fast. And then really the other thing with Anthony is he split time doing track and football. Really hasn't had like a full year of development from a football perspective. He's super young. He doesn't turn 21 till September. And he's really, really smart. I know the staff at Auburn talked about he was really one of the smartest guys that they coached. And that's something that we were able to confirm throughout the interview process. Like when he met with us and our coaching staff, he's a guy who could quickly retain and grasp information, had really, high conceptual understanding of the big picture. And is a guy that we think has the mental capacity to play really multiple spots in the offense. So for us, we felt like we were getting a smart, hardworking, young prospect with a rare trait, which is his speed, that could help stretch the defense early and create after the catch. So it's a guy that we're excited to work with. We're excited to get with CO, on a daily basis and see where it leads.
How much does that factor in? The fact that let's say, for example, we'll talk about James Hudson in a second, but you get James Hudson, you get to give him to Bill Callahan. You get a receiver, you get to give him to Chad O'Shea, who's been in the league and done this at a high level for a very long time. A running back would be with Stump Mitchell. Just when you have that quality of coaching, does that make you more apt to say, let's find a rare trait, 20 years old, that we know has an opportunity to maybe develop more than what we saw because we know the coaching level that he's going to receive?
We are certainly very confident in the coaches that we have on staff. You mentioned CO, Stump, Bill. They're all excellent, coaches at their position. With that being said, we do want to get the most talented guys. So it's not just about, getting someone who has a trait and then expecting our coaching staff to turn water into wine. We drafted these guys because we think they're good football players and they have, upward trajectory, as they grow into professionals over the life of their rookie deal. So, yes, we do have a high degree of confidence in our position coaches and coordinators. But at the same time, we're not drafting guys just to be projects. We're drafting guys because we think they're good football players.
All right, and AB, then we go into the fourth round. James Hudson, a guy, former defensive lineman, plays with a little bit of a mean streak, but was sensational and has those good feet. And I got to tell you, our guy Jason Gibbs mocked James Hudson to the Browns in his final mock draft. Love those feet, the movement skills. A huge, what a moment for Gibbe when that name was called. But what did you like about him as well? And is there a spot now for Gibbe in the O-line scouting department?
Well, I tell you what, he nailed it. It really is the feet and athletic ability. We think that this is a guy who's tailor-made for the wide zone system. We think he has all the physical characteristics that we're looking for in pass protection. So we're excited about him getting with Bill and the rest of our O-line group and seeing how he progresses.
And, he's a huge Joe Thomas fan and talked about how when he made that switch, he put on Joe Thomas YouTubes, and that's how, what he wanted to model his game after. How cool is it to have Joe Thomas as a part of this organization? I shared that with Joe, and he texted me back. I'm going to go call him right now. That would be, to me, that is what a guy Joe is, obviously, but what another great, just kind of cool thing and resource here about the Browns, and just the love this organization has for itself, Yeah,
Joe's a fantastic ambassador for the organization, and we're all very, very fortunate that not only is he, did he have a Hall of Fame caliber career for the organization, but that he continues to invest in the team even if he's no longer on the field.
It is something pretty special. 40 bench press, 40 reps at 225, I would consider pretty special as well. And that's what Tommy Togiai, the defensive lineman out of Ohio State, brings you. Just a strong force in the middle. And somebody that I think people thought might have gone a lot higher, felt like a really nice value with a guy with a lot of upside for you in the middle of that line.
Yeah, we do really like Tommy's ability to play stout at the point of attack. He's very good with his hands, but also for like a stouter, stronger guy, he also has good mobility. Because in this defense, even though the nose tackle position is one where we do want a little bit of firmness in the middle line of scrimmage, guys have to be able to move in this scheme. So we think Tommy fits the bill in that regard.
Speaking of movement, I think it was a theme, right? Speed, guys who can get around the field, and Tony Fields, the second, the linebacker from West Virginia, certainly does that. Similar in size from a weight standpoint to Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah. You drafted much earlier in this one. Just a tackling machine at Arizona and West Virginia. What did you like about him? Another space player, if you will, for this defense.
Yeah, we think Tony's a classic will in our system. I think he has the physical characteristics, the speed, the athletic ability, the processing ability, mentally, both run and pass, where his strengths really fit like a glove with the position description for us. We also think in the short term, he has all the physical characteristics to be a core cover guy on our special teams units, because he can run, he can play in space, and he's a bit of a heat-seeking missile when he plays. So we're excited to get him with the defensive staff, with Tar, Ben Bloom, and get a chance to work with him.
So you mentioned kind of that position for Fields. What do you see JOK being? Because it seems he could be any possible linebacker position, can be part safety, maybe slot corner. I mean, it seems limitless. But what in this defense, what's kind of the position you envisioned for JOK?
Yeah, we see him as a will.
Okay.
We see him as a will, and certainly, as you mentioned, Nate, his versatility is helpful. It allows us to be pretty multiple in our sub packages, and then even in particular dime. But his base home position is as a will in our defense.
All right, we go now at safety. Richard Lecount out of Georgia, former 5-star recruit. Obviously, his testing maybe was a little down after that accident, but certainly productive in the SEC, which is the best, conference in college football.
Yeah, physical downhill safety, good range, good instincts on the back end. We really did like his tape. Productive player over multiple years at Georgia. As you mentioned, he was in the accident. The spring was a little bit disappointing for him, but we just loved this film. We loved this film and thought he was a guy who produced effectively in both phases. So we're excited to get him on board and see what he can do.
And finally, by the way, in addition to picking up a 2022 fourth, which you guys did, maneuvering around and out of the 7th round, to the delight of many, I would say, here in Cleveland and in the building, you end up the draft with Demetric Felton, running back, receiver, returner, just producer at UCLA. And I'll tell you, his highlight tape is a fun one to watch.
Yeah, we view Demetric just as a kind of really a classic third down back.
Yep.
Former slot receiver, converted running back. Even though he's a bit undersized, runs bigger than his size would suggest between the tackles. But where we think he can really take advantage is as a weapon in the passing game. We thought he was one of the few running backs in the class who could actually motion out and split out like a slot receiver. And those guys are hard to find. And they're even more importantly, they're usually pretty difficult to defend from a defensive standpoint. So he gives us a fair amount of versatility. He gives us a little bit of a specialized skill set, within that room. And I know, Kevin, Stump, AVP, they'll have a number of creative ways to potentially deploy him.
So there it is. The draft was in the books, but you guys never done. And for the second straight year, make a pretty big investment in an undrafted free agent. Marvin Wilson, the defensive tackle out of Florida State, who honestly, when you put on highlights, looks like Warren Sapp to me when he is at his best. I mean, he was pretty dominant. How does a guy like that end up undrafted? And when somebody is that much of a priority, where there are multiple teams, there's a bidding situation, how does it get to this point? There's so many, 260 picks in a draft. How does it get to the point, and what was it that attracted you guys? So Wilson, who, a former 5-star, I think he was the number 6 player in his class, number 1 defensive tackle, who looks like a monster out there, to be honest.
So, for us, Marvin was a guy that we anticipated really coming off the board at some point on Saturday. And when he was available, just really based on how we valued him, we wanted to make sure that we could, really aggressively pursue him. Yes,
1 minute.
He's good at the point of attack. Similar to what I mentioned with Tommy a little bit earlier, even though he's strong, he has some mobility. From our perspective, defensive line, offensive line, they're always the more challenging positions to find throughout the course of the year. And so any chance we have any opportunity that we have to, to procure a player that we believe has some tangible upside, we're going to do. And so that's what we do with Marvin.
Well, it seemed like you certainly had fun, you and Kevin, the closing press conference. You can see when you talk about alignment, I mean, just put that on. It is clear as day along with Depot. Just congratulations on executing your plan as you guys intended to. Coming out with competition is going to be there for sure. And now the fun begins, the work and getting to see the paper come to life. So congratulations. Go be with your family. We appreciate the time.
5 seconds.
And looking forward to seeing this.
All right, great stuff with Z and AB there. Awesome stuff. Great interview there on that side. It's fun, and now you just can't wait to see it all out on the field. Coming up next, we will go around the league. Some interesting developments there. We will get to that coming up next. Play a little bit of better or worse at the top of the next hour. Dane Brugler at 2:30. Cleveland Browns Daily, 850 ESPN Cleveland. If you live and breathe football, sometimes keeping your priorities straight can be a challenge. Unfortunately, this game can be true when you gamble. If you find that your gambling is affecting other parts of your life, get some help. Get some tips on responsible gambling at KeepItFunOhio.com. Let's go around the league. Former Steeler Alejandro Villanueva and the Ravens agreeing to a 2-year deal. The two-time Pro Bowl offensive tackle can play left tackle, slide to right, with Ronley Stanley obviously coming back. His life is one where you just give so much respect to. But I think it's fair to say that there was a little bit of a step that was lost. Certainly noticed it last year with Villanueva, but this was a necessity for the Ravens to try and shore up their offensive line with the trade in the offseason. So Stanley is coming back. That'll be big. Villanueva will move to right and play right tackle for the Ravens next year in that attack.
Yeah, he stays in the division. He's been a competent player. Obviously a down year last year for him with the Steelers, but if you're the Ravens, this is as good of a solution as you could come up with following the departure of Orlando Brown. So, again, the Ravens are good. I mean,
yeah,
they are. They're good. They're dangerous offensively, and even if they do it in a little bit of a different way than, we might prefer. And they still have some pretty darn good players on defense. Their pass rush is a question mark because of all the departures there. But it's just a franchise. When's the last time the Ravens were bad?
Right.
You know what I mean? There have been plenty of years where, they got it all figured out after the Chargers played the 3 safeties and mashed them. And then Lamar goes on and wins the MVP that year, and they're the number 1 seed in the AFC.
And
they're just always good.
I think the best chance. Absolutely. And I think that they were kind of meandering for a while until they drafted Lamar. And even that season, it felt like it was the end for John Harbaugh, and he was a lame duck situation. And then Lamar comes in, Harbaugh smart enough to adjust on the fly to make the most of what Lamar is. They do it. They bring in Martindale, and away you go. And so that it's a team now that you look at them, and they are dangerous. And it's, they've certainly had our number through the years. So, we know them very, very well. I do sense, though, and I think if you go back to last year, and we remember that lead up to that Kansas City game, they played that on a Thursday night, wasn't it? Or was it a Sunday or a Thursday? I remember it was prime time. I can't remember if it was Thursday or Sunday night. But
last
they put
year?
so much internal. Yeah.
I remember it was prime time.
Do you remember?
No, 2 years ago they played. The year that the Ravens went 14-2, they played week 4. We beat them week 4. They lost maybe to them week 3 before we played them, but played them tough.
Yeah.
And then they didn't lose again the rest of that season. And then last year, it was definitely a primetime game. I don't remember if it was a Thursday or
I can't remember
or
if it was
Sunday.
But I remember they had so much into the game.
Yep, and then
and they acknowledged how big it was for them to win, and then Kansas City hammered them. And it was it just felt like it took them almost to our game to kind of get going again. It really cut the wind out of their sails. So, and I think that that's something that's real. I think that they need, for their sake, they need to have success in the postseason and feel it and win some games, and because there is pressure that will continue to mount on them, until they do. But no, incredibly formidable. If you don't have respect for the Ravens, and I feel the same way about Pittsburgh, I can look at them and I go, boy, running back in the first round, offensive line issues. Ben, to me, looks like he's cooked. Looked like the arm was cooked. You almost hate even saying it out loud because, just of what they've done. But you look at the roster, to me, it looks like it's a lot of holes. But you also remember they were 11-0, and so, or 10-0, or whatever it was last year. So you just respect those two franchises so much for what they've been over the last 20 years.
No doubt. And you would be, I think, foolish to not. But that doesn't mean that I don't love our chances and what we're doing here.
Yes.
I like our chances against both of them. Now, the next point here around the league is I got pretty strong opinions on this, to be honest with you.
I look forward to them. So let's set the table for you. The NFLPA call with the rookies and their agents as it pertains to opting out of 2021. So here's where we stand. OTAs and now rookie minicamps. NFLPA Executive Director DeMaurice Smith said on a call Monday with rookie players and their agents, the union again will negotiate the rights to players to opt out of the 2021 season per sources. Dozens of players look to opt out in 2020 amidst the COVID pandemic. On the same call, NFLPA and our guy, J.C. Treader, made clear the union stance on boycotting voluntary OTAs is about changing the offseason model, not about COVID. So this is a big, big shift.
Yeah.
This is the first time that this has been acknowledged, and we talked about this the last time we talked about this topic. This is not a 2021 offseason issue. This will be an issue year after year. The union recommending rookies stay home, too. This includes rookie mini camps, with DeMaurice Smith emphasizing are voluntary. The union's recommendation is players don't show up to those either. So some more drama over the next couple of weeks. Go ahead. I know you've got a lot to say on this, and then I have a couple of points as well. Go ahead.
At least, okay, one, congrats for being honest about it and what it's actually about. But you collectively bargained a decade-long agreement a year ago. 1 year ago. That's it. You're in this. If this is what you wanted, the elimination of the offseason, you were at the negotiating table and had the chance to do it with the same leadership. JC was the president then. You had the chance to do it. Just because COVID did happen, and it says, you say to yourself, okay, well now everything's different now. We saw the league sees. Clearly the league knows that's what happened. But at the same time, this is what has been agreed to. You want to go ahead and renegotiate something else down the line? 10 years? Fine. Maybe there comes a point in the CBA where both sides want to change things. That's fine. But I just think it seems so disingenuous, and it would basically, I think it's pretty wild. I think it is pretty wild, and I think unfortunately, I hate the fact, for JC as a Brown, I think it puts him in a tough spot. It puts our organization in a tough spot because you have a guy on your team actively telling, rookies, don't come to your rookie minicamp. And do you think in 2013, fourth-round pick J.C. Tretter was just like, cool, I don't need to show up to rookie minicamp? No, because
and you
these
just
guys
outlined why this is so difficult.
Especially on our team, I'm sorry. If you're not one of our first 3 picks, there are no guarantees. Tommy Togiai, I think they love him, but you've got to beat out Malik McDowell. You've got to beat out Marvin Wilson. You've got to beat out now a guy who's been in the league for 9 years and makes a roster every year. And Damien Squire. That's not a given. Our 5th-round picks are not locks to make this team. Our 6th-round picks, not locks to make this team. And the best thing that they can do to ensure their ability to earn a living in this game is to come to that rookie minicamp and make that first impression that's great, because that's an opportunity for them to get all the reps. Because once you get into OTAs, which now don't even happen, now you're into the mandatory minicamp. They're going to focus all the time, as they should, on the guys that are here to play. And the notion that you don't make a team until, training camp or whatever, that's fine. But you can put yourself in a position to make a team because of what you do early. There's no Taylor Gabriel, who went on to make $18 million in his NFL career. Just Brown's examples, who was a rookie minicamp invitee. Andrew Hawkins isn't in the NFL, who went on to have a nice year where he had more than 800 yards receiving in a season for the Cleveland Browns. I just think and maybe it's a veteran thing saying, if we do this, it doesn't hurt us as much as it hurts new players who are coming in trying to take our jobs. I just think there's so much at play here, and I hate it, period. But it so becomes much more difficult when the person leading this charge is a Cleveland Brown. I've never been more excited. I don't think our coaches have ever been more excited. I think a lot of the guys on this team have never been more excited to get on the grass and put in the work, because you've got a chance to win the Super Bowl. And those chances don't come around all that often. And you want to talk, we're all about the work. You want to outwork everybody. And J.C. Tretter is an incredibly good player, an incredibly smart player, and an incredibly hard worker, and made it to be this point where he was able to sign those big deals because of his work and his attention to detail and all the reps that he got in and put in. And now you're saying, everybody after me, you don't have to do that, and expect them to be able to play at the level that you did? I think it's real hard, and I think it's a real slippery slope. And I think if I'm a young player, they're not looking out for me. This feels like I'm looking out for the veterans, which I understand, because their flip side is, and that's why you have this tough spot. Nothing that isn't guaranteed in our contracts is guaranteed. The teams can say, here's a 4-year deal worth this, and once your guaranteed money's up after 2 years, typically, can say, I'm not honoring this 4-year deal. So they're maybe saying this is the same as the CBA. We both agreed on this contract, which was 4 years, $30 million, 2 years, 15 guaranteed, and you can cut me free and clear in year 3 with no responsibility to you. So I want to renegotiate something that we negotiated. But it's a tough spot. I sympathize with these players. I don't want people to think that that's not what I'm saying. It is collectively bargained, and I know how brutal the NFL is being around here and all the friends that I've made on this team throughout the years and what they go through and what they put their bodies through, knowing that they can be released anytime. Sheldon Richardson couldn't have done anything any better than he did for the Cleveland Browns over 2 years. But because of salary cap and maneuvering around, he's currently unemployed, even though he was under contract at the time. So I get it all from both sides. I just think there are going to be teams and or groups that take advantage of this, and you have to think it makes them somewhat better. And when your window is so short in this league, you're a player, the average career span is 3 years max, and you're just going to jump out of giving yourself every opportunity to have a career, or all the guys who were undrafted that were overlooked and slept on who have gone on to make great careers, do they even get a chance now? Is that what rookie minicamp becomes if the real rookies don't show up? Is it a training camp for guys that would never be here? I don't understand.
Good job out of you. Bring up a lot of things. Number one, a couple of things jump out to me. We drafted 8 players. It is realistic to believe that all 8 will not make this team.
Yes.
Very realistic. Hard for me to imagine all 8 make this team, let alone the free agents that we brought in. It is very difficult, and personally, I enjoy J.C. Treader a great deal.
I love J.C.
He did Game of Thrones with us.
Of course.
I love him as a player. I love what he brings to this squad. But he's going to make this team.
Yes.
He doesn't have to worry about that. He is on this team. And that's what makes the NFLPA in such a tough spot. It wouldn't matter if J.C. were leading it or somebody else were leading it. It's led by established players. There are non-guaranteed contracts in this league. How can you possibly represent somebody who's made and had a 10-year career and has made tens of millions of dollars and somebody who's made nothing and is just trying to catch on and make it? You can't. It's impossible. It is impossible to try to represent both. Yep. The other thing, and you hit on this very eloquently, this was collectively bargained. If you're upset about a 17th game, then why did you allow it to be in there as a possibility? Because guess what? 18's coming too. 18 games we're not stopping at 17. It'll be 18 games soon enough. So that's the next thing. You had to know that this was coming. That's very much a part of it. The other thing I would say on this front is, you remember, of course, and I know that you do, but just for the people out there listening, do you remember how often Joe Schobert was in our building? Constantly.
Every day.
Every day. All year.
All year. Yep.
He was here all year. And there's guys like Joe that are there because they like it. They like the facility. They like the way they're treated. They like working out here. They like having breakfast, lunch, and dinner. They like having smoothies. They like having all that stuff that comes with being an NFL player for the Cleveland Browns and other teams. It's a good way to continue to get better. And let alone the locker room part of it, where you're hanging out with your buddies, because you don't get that if you go privately train in Scottsdale or Miami or wherever. Okay? So that's something that's undefeated. And those guys are seen by coaches in the facility. And that extends careers. There's no question, because it's in the back of your head. If it's close between two guys, but he's put in all this time, I'm going to go with him.
Because I know he's going to do whatever he can to make sure he gets
what is required.
Right.
Last point on this. So I was talking to Anthony Schlegel, who's a buddy of mine, who's now the strength coach in Jacksonville, right? Ohio State linebacker. They had 60 guys at OTAs. 60 training in Jacksonville at the facility. 60. So you're going to tell rookies not to show up? To me, I just don't see it. I don't see it. Because, and this is one of those situations where if you don't like it, there aren't that many guys in this league who are not replaceable. Most are. Stars are. Your point on Sheldon Richardson is spot on. Sheldon Richardson did everything that was asked. It was great. On and off the field.
Great.
So, it's a tough spot. It's a very, very tough spot. We play a little better or worse coming up next at the top of the hour. You listen to Cleveland Browns Daily on 850 ESPN Cleveland.
were up.
All right, second hour here on a Tuesday. Dane Brugler at the bottom of the hour. And, guys, we've been cooped up in the house a lot this past year. Finally time to get back outside, grilling on the patio, sitting around the fire on a nice spring evening, putting your feet up, just enjoying being outside, even just taking your laptop out and working from the backyard. Instead of sitting on those beat-up folding chairs, how about real patio furniture that's going to last for years? I know what you're thinking. Ultra expensive. Not necessarily. Northeast Factory Direct has outdoor sectionals, dining sets, fire pits, and loungers. You get everything you need for a whole lot less than you'd pay at those other places. Each of their 3 stores in Cleveland, Euclid, and Macedonia is stocked with the best deals on outdoor furniture right now. Stop in to check it out for yourself. You will not be disappointed in the quality or the selection, and most especially the price. You can always shop it online at northeastfactorydirect.com. Time for a little better or worse. Gibby. Post-draft, better or worse? Are you kidding me?
So I think that we're going to – normally we would keep this just in season on Tuesdays. I think I'm going to find a different top list every week. Might be sports, might not be. And I think every Tuesday in the offseason we're going to do a little bit of this.
I like it. I like where your head's at, Gibby.
Yeah, it's just called
How
higher
long's
or
our
lower,
off-season, like a month and a half?
Yeah, we're going to be back basically. Yeah, get the vacations in now, kids.
Middle of July? Back to season. Let's go.
Yeah, no pressure. We're all coming back here real soon. This is post-draft power rankings. Compliments of our good friend Dan Hansis at NFL.com. So on his power rankings, he has the Cleveland Browns at number 6. Do you agree? Do you disagree? Nick, little traveling music underneath the gentleman here as we talk a little power rankings on a Tuesday. Zegura, start with you.
So is this agree or disagree, better or worse or higher or lower? What are we going with?
Yeah, well, we go higher or lower.
Better or worse
agree or
late
disagree?
spot.
Do you like or do you not like where they're slotted at right now?
I'm fine with it. I believe that we are better than the Ravens, but we got to beat them. We've got to beat the Ravens consistently to prove that we are the better football team. And so, last year they swept us. They did. Week 1 and then the Monday night shootout, but the Ravens went 2-0 against the Cleveland Browns last year. I want to see the Browns beat them. To be the man, you got to beat the man. And, I think that the Browns and the Ravens are in a two-horse race for this division. I'm fine. This just gives me some bulletin board material. Let's prove them wrong.
Bishop.
As Coach Stefanski said, there is very little carryover year to year. He said that to us on Browns Live. So at this point, all that I am tasked with is looking at the 2 rosters and saying, which roster do I prefer?
Ours.
And not through orange and brown colored glasses. I prefer ours by a wide margin. In fact, we are much betterer than where we are at 6 on a roster standpoint. I would have us 3rd behind only Tampa Bay and Kansas City. I think we have the 3rd best roster, and I think potentially even that could be a little low. I think it is complete. I don't think there's a question mark on this roster, and I don't know that that's true about Kansas City. They have Mahomes. He's a unicorn. Can't argue it. So I won't go there, but I think we have the 3rd. I think we should be number 3 on this list.
I like that. I'm fine with it. Listen, PFS says we have the 2nd best roster. Mike Clay just did his roster rankings. He gave us the 2nd best roster in the NFL, right behind the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. By the way, we're talking roster, and then it's like, well, what do you need to get the best out of your roster? Coaching. We have the reigning Coach of the Year, too. So it should be assumed, I think, that we will be better than what we are on paper. That's the mark of good coaching, is it not? I know we're going to be prepared. We've got 4 Ps now. We started with 3, now 4.
4.
I don't see how that doesn't portend well for us. We're running back the entire coaching staff. All of them.
Yeah, I'm telling you, we should be 3.
All right, here we go. Let's take a look with the AFC North first and foremost. Nick, hit the sounder.
Higher or lower?
Better.
The Ravens are ranked 4th. We just talked about that. We both think, all 3 of us think the Browns should be higher than the Baltimore Ravens. The Pukers come in at number 11.
Good boys.
Should they be higher, lower, or are they just right? Bishop, I will start with you.
boy, I hate doing bulletin board material with them just because of how good they've been, and they've dominated us. Like, there's no way around it. Now, we handled them the last time we've seen them, and that means a lot. But there is no way that you can say, based on roster, like if you throw out their history and all of it, you throw that out, they are not the 11th best roster in the NFL.
No.
They do not have as good a roster as Tennessee. They do not have as good a roster as Indy. They don't have as good a roster as Miami. They do not, and I don't love Tua that much, but still, Miami's pretty good. The Chargers, I think, are better. I think Arizona might be better. To me, they should be somewhere in the 17, 18, 19 range for Pittsburgh. So I think they should be worse than 11.
Zegura?
I think it unraveled for them last year. Totally unraveled.
Yeah, this is one of those, if I could short that stock right now at the 11th position and where they finish, next year, I would do it. I don't think that they have a pick in 20 and beyond in next year's draft. So I think they'll be picking in the top 20 of the draft is what I mean to say. I'm with you. Mike Clay's got them as the 14th best roster in the league. I think it's debatable that their roster is better than the 49ers at this point. I think it is debatable that their roster is better than the Colts. I think it's debatable that their roster is better than the Chargers. And, I think it's debatable their roster is better, as you mentioned, than the Dolphins. I think that they are in for a tough season. They've got questions on offense, but I think they have more questions on defense. And I know they like Alex Highsmith, but he's got to replace Bud Dupree at a high level. They decimated their cornerback room this offseason, which had started to struggle as the season went on anyway. I don't think they're the 11th best team in the league. And I am honestly, and this is going to sound crazy to some people perhaps, I'm more interested in Browns-Bengals games this year in terms of what they'll bring to the table, certainly from an offensive standpoint, than I am Browns-Steelers. And they have that mystique. Yep. Don't get me wrong. I've been here long enough to know you don't count them out. They can beat you. But I feel what we did in the playoffs is as much of a football shift, it's a mental shift. It's a mental shift.
Agreed. It feels a little – it's not the same because of the importance of one player, but it feels a little bit like the end of Kobe with the Lakers, where he continued to play at the end because there was such a reverence for him, but the teams were – it was almost like they were paying him and keeping him despite the betterment of the team. It's not almost as if that's what happened. That's exactly what happened.
Yep.
And that's what this feels like with Pittsburgh. Like, Roethlisberger's a first balloter. He's a gold jacket.
Yep.
No question. But at the same time, he's not what he was, and that was very obvious as the season went along last year.
Up next in the AFC North, the Bengals ranked 29th. He's got the Carolina Panthers ahead of them, the New York Jets ahead. The Broncos are pretty good, maybe. Should they be higher, lower, or are they just right?
Higher or lower?
They're better than the Jets, for sure. I mean, they're absolutely better than the Jets. So the Jets at 27. I think they're better than Carolina. I would take them over Carolina right now, too, with Darnold, just because I got to see
frisky.
it. And I think offensively they're a real problem. I don't know how you – I mean, even with us, with all of our talent, we need every bit of the corners we acquired to handle Boyd, Higgins, and Chase. You know how game Burrow is. You saw that firsthand. You put him in there. Mixon's a dude. They'll be able to block it. I think defensively they got some big problems, but offensively they are going to be very, very frisky.
I agree.
They're better than this. They're better than 29.
I definitely like them better than the Jets. Denver could go from 26 on this list to top 5 on this list, obviously, with the arrival of Aaron Rodgers. And if you think that, he's not important, that right there says it all to you. But I think that's a dangerous team. I think there are a lot of it. The league is pretty good top to bottom. Is there a game where you're like, okay, this is just a total cakewalk? I mean, at 30,
Houston.
At 31, Houston seems to be in trouble.
Houston's
the Lions.
I'm not sure why Houston's not the worst team in the NFL.
They should be right now. But, like, the Jags are going to be a tough team.
They are the worst.
They're going to be a tough out.
In this power poll, he's got Detroit 32. Come on.
I don't get that. I don't understand that. To me, Houston is so bad. They're so bad. Houston looks like an expansion team, don't they?
They're the
Correct.
one team with if they don't have Deshaun Watson that looks really, really bad. The Jags are dangerous.
Well, and you heard
That's
what
gonna be
Daniel Jeremiah said on the draft.
That's what I said, yeah.
He's not coming back.
Right, he is a former Texans quarterback. I think the Lions, I don't know who they're throwing the ball to. I think that they're probably the next team that's down there. Lions, Texans.
I have the Jets, Lions, but Texans are the worst.
Yes.
All right. Next.
Higher or lower?
Let's go back to the top of this list. Number 1 was Tampa. Number 2, obviously, Kansas City. Number 3 is Buffalo. Takes us to number 4 in the Green Bay Packers. Should they be higher, lower, or are they just right, Zegura?
If Aaron Rodgers is their quarterback, they're just right. They're fine. I mean, I'm happy putting us at 3 and them being right in that mix. I think they're one of the better teams. For example, Beau, I don't know about you, but if you give me full-on Aaron Rodgers and the Green Bay Packers against the Bills, I'll take the Packers right now with Aaron Rodgers. And I think Josh Allen is a stud.
Same.
I have 100% completely believe he is a stud. I think they're right. But if they lose Rodgers,
is their defense
they go back
that
to
good?
it doesn't matter. He's that good.
It doesn't matter with him. I mean, the fact that it doesn't matter who his receivers are. Devontae Adams is great, but he's just so good.
They've got Jair Alexander. Then they drafted Stokes, right? They drafted a corner in the first round. So that was something that they needed, one more corner. They've got Savage at free safety. They've got some good up front, the Smiths. They've got good pass rushers. They've got some
boys, yeah.
They can be a pretty good defense. I think they're right. They want to get it figured out because I think they know it. They can win the Super Bowl. They're in the hat of the teams that can win the Super Bowl this year.
As long as they're not kicking field goals on 4th down and goal in a meaningful football game.
Well, so this brings – because I agree with you. I think they're the sweet spot right about where they should be because right now they have Aaron Rodgers, and I tend to think he'll end up playing there by one way or another. 2 Super Bowl championships with 32 consecutive years of Favre and Rodgers.
What have I said? I think that the biggest organizational failure in recent NFL history is 1 Super Bowl with Aaron Rodgers.
Yep.
And I think he's better than Brett.
They got 1 with Favre, 1 with Rodgers. And I think they're both top 10 quarterbacks ever.
Favre is more volatile, where you could see him throwing you out of a game.
Sure.
Whereas Rodgers is just a stud.
Yeah.
Next.
Higher or lower?
All right, last one here because we have a short segment before Dane. The 49ers are ranked 9th. Now between them, the Ravens 5th, the Browns 6th, the Rams 7th, the Seahawks 8th. The 49ers are 9th. And I'll lump in the New Orleans Saints, too, at 10. Both of them. Higher, lower, just right. The NFC definitely
New Orleans
not
lower.
as good as the
New
AFC.
Orleans lower. The Niners are going to – New Orleans is worser. The Niners are better. Do you know that in the sports books, the Niners have the 5th best odds to win the Super Bowl this year? 5th best.
I don't know how you don't have a quarterback.
Yeah, I know.
The odds right now
I
are Bucks,
know how much
Chiefs, Packers, Niners, Rams, Browns. Ravens 7th.
They've had incredibly bad injury luck. Incredibly bad. And you can't argue it. But in terms of proven commodity, they are not equal to the Rams or the Seahawks on a year-in, year-out basis.
Yep.
They're not. So I can't put them ahead of the Rams and Seahawks on a year-in. I wouldn't on this list. If it all goes right, which it did a couple of years ago, they should have won the Super Bowl. But when it goes wrong there, it goes way wrong, like way off the rails. And last year's injuries can't help that necessarily. But they're in a weird spot. I do think they're better off than the Saints. They're probably in the vicinity of where they need to be. They're right there. Tennessee, the Colts. I think they're a little better off than the Colts. I think the Chargers are really a little too low on this list.
I agree.
Really like their
They're
draft.
a good football team.
And I think Arizona's too low, too. I think Arizona's a little too low on this list as well. That would be the way that I would view that. But this could be fun. All right, little higher, lower, better or worse, the sweet spot, agree or disagree.
Or worse.
Good job out of you, Gibby.
Great
All right,
job,
we'll get Kuiper's grades on us, and then Dane Brugler's at the bottom of the hour. Cleveland Browns Daily, 850 ESPN Cleveland. Injuries during childbirth require experienced counsel. Call the lawyers at Elk & Elk for clear answers to what happened during your child's birth. Elk & Elk, a proud partner of your Cleveland Browns. Call 1-800-ELK, Ohio today. Mel Kiper Jr. with his draft grades, giving us a B. He says this: how does it feel, Browns fans, to not have to worry too much about an NFL draft? You got a good ascending team. General Manager Andrew Berry has shown that he can draft well. The one criticism I have about Berry's top 3 picks is that he didn't address the defensive end spot. Yes, Jadeveon Clowney was signed to a 1-year deal, but there's not much young, talented depth after Clowney and Myles Garrett. They can't rely on former first-round pick Tack McKinley. Of course, he leaves out C. Weaves, our guy. C.
Well,
Weaves in the
five-star
mix.
Porter Gustin. Yeah, it leaves those guys out completely. Yeah. I think the Browns, had Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah not been available to them in round 2, which was clearly a surprise to everybody involved in our draft process, I think we would have gone an edge rusher in round 2, which is kind of what we had talked about all along. Corner, edge, wide receiver, speed at wide receiver. Those were going to be the first 3 picks, and I think Owusu-Koramoah falling changed that, and then at that point, they didn't like any of the edge rushers in this draft enough to bring them onto our football team relative to what else they wanted to accomplish. So I think it's pretty simple that something happened they did not expect, and you and I think we're pretty much right on. The only linebacker they would have considered in the first round, barring a complete catastrophe of how the draft fell, was Owusu-Koramoah. they got him in the second round, and so something had to give at that point. And what they chose to give on was edge rusher because they're not forcing it. And that's the beauty. They didn't have to force anything. Now you could say, all right, well, edge rusher next year could be a priority, but you'll also have the opportunity to sign Clowney or McKinley to a longer-term deal based on how this year goes and the development of Weaver and Gustin behind them.
You are going to be in a position where, boy, you hope McKinley blossoms, and you certainly feel like that they believe that he could. You hope that maybe Jadeveon Clowney can play here for the next 3 years, maybe finish his career. Who knows? You don't know what the future holds. But here's what I do know, is that you will be in a position to put somebody next to Myles Garrett in the free agent market for a long time.
Yep.
And, of course, you'd want somebody there on a permanent basis, young, who could develop. But it's not the worst thing to be able to take talented veterans coming in on short-term deals to play opposite Myles Garrett. That's a pretty good spot. This will be a very enviable spot that Clowney's in for veterans throughout the league in the next 5 years. So if you have to play that game, you can. I do respect the heck out of Mel Kiper for, look, he believes what he believes. He believes we should have taken a defensive end. Fine. Don't give us an A because of that. It's okay. That's his belief. That's fine. It's still a B. If you read the rest of his comments about the rest of our draft, it does sound like an A.
Yeah. Top pick, Greg
we
Newsome.
overdraft.
Right.
Everybody else, we got him a round later than he projected.
Right. Here's his comments. Top pick, Greg Newsome, had an outstanding 2020 season, had a great pro day workout, vaulting him in the first round. Now they have an outside corner to compete with Greedy Williams opposite Denzel. They also signed fantastic slot corner Troy Hill. Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah could be the steal of the draft as he dropped all the way to round 2. Sideline-to-sideline player, good in the run, the pass game. I see him as a rookie starter for the Browns at one of the linebacker spots. They also needed a slot receiver and got one with elite track speed in Anthony Schwartz. I think they see him more on the outside, but they could be both. I thought James Hudson would have been a good pick in round 3. They got him in a round later. Receiver Demetric Felton and defensive tackle Tommy Togiai are solid value picks who could eventually find playing time. So I think overall that's a pretty darn good draft. And he also highlights some of the good things that happened in the offseason for the Browns in that. And that's fine. I think you make a great point right there. Yes, you have the opportunity to play the rotating door opposite Myles and probably be just fine. But, boy, I can't help but think I'm still betting on, Tack McKinley to have a solid season because I think Clowney is going to be inside a lot in those pass rushing situations, and Tack on the edge is going to be singled up all the time. I don't think it's crazy to think he gets 8 sacks this year. I really don't.
No, I don't either. And I you're getting, it's just a high, it's such a low risk, potentially high reward thing with McKinley. And you talked to him, and so you were able to be, I don't know, were you face to face or you screen for screen? How were you able? I know that you were very impressed with your conversation with Dak in terms of his focus and what he was expecting out of himself.
Screen to screen, yeah. That was still before we could be in a room together, but yeah, screen to screen. But you felt it, and anybody you talked to Chris Kiffin about it, you talked to AB about it, you talked to Kevin Stefanski about it. They really feel that way that you've got a guy here with a lot of talent who's very, very hungry to make sure that he takes advantage of what I think is going to be a very good opportunity.
Yeah. Yep. And it'll be fun. It'll be fun. And Weaver is the X factor here, of course, too. I mean, this speaking of, and both Dak and Weaver come at next to nothing from a cost standpoint. And you get high talent guys who you can see how they play opposite Myles, and if one of them clicks, then away you go. By the way, Porter Gustin made plays. He made plays when he was in there last year. So there's, I understand Mel's thing, and I understand the ding from his perspective, and I respect it. But I think we're very, very comfortable with where we are at that spot going into next season. One guy who ought to know how comfortable we are is Dane Brugler. He has nailed our first-round picks the last 2 years. We will talk to him about some of our undrafted guys, some of our late-round picks as well. He will join us coming up next. You listen to Cleveland Browns Daily on 850 ESPN Cleveland. All right, Beau and Nathan with you, Cleveland Browns Daily, 850 ESPN Cleveland. Time to head out on the hotline. Visit our good buddy Dane Brugel, draft expert with The Athletic, who joins the program now. Dane, I saw this morning, I woke up and I see a 2022 mock draft with your name on it. And I would just ask you, like, when do you get a break, man? When's your downtime, buddy?
Tomorrow. There's a lot of wrap up to do. Have to put a bow on the 2021 class, but I'll just want to look forward. Give people a little peek towards next year and some of the players. I mean, let's be honest, mock drafts a year out are just silly. But with that said, hopefully people check it out because it's really just a watch list of 32 names that people need to have on the radar a year ahead of time.
Dane, here we are, finally, all of this madness and mayhem in the books, and let's just start big picture, overall thoughts on what Andrew Berry and the Browns accomplished.
I liked it a lot, and, you could what I do, instead of doing draft grades on The Athletic, I power rank 1 through 32, my favorite draft classes, team by team. And the Browns came in at number 2 overall.
Wow.
As my second favorite class. And part of that is the value. Part of that is the talent. Just all that goes, a part of it, and a very unofficial equation that I use to determine, my favorite classes. But it starts at the top. I mean, we've talked so much about Greg Newsome the last weeks and months, just how perfect of a fit that he would be. I've called him the Jedrick Wills of this class, just in terms of what he would mean to this roster in terms of stabilizing a unit. I think he has that ability. Can't wait to see him in camp to see how, what his impact can be on this team. Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah in the second round. Obviously the news came out about the medical situation. And so when I asked about that, the feedback I got was it's more about the lack of information more so than a true concern about the medical situation. So, and this is the case, several players, Azeez Ojulari and Terrace Marshall. There's a few others where we just didn't have all the medical information for teams to make a really sound determination until you got to a certain point and the value became too great. So the Browns, ended up getting a steal with the Owusu-Koramoah. Anthony Schwartz in the third round. I don't know that he is necessarily going to be a player that's going to help you a ton this year as a rookie. I do think, we'll see him on the field because of that speed. That threat of speed alone is going to affect how defenses play the Browns. But I really think it was a pick for next year and going forward, just, seeing what his development could be. He had more rushing touchdowns than receiving touchdowns in college. And so I'm eager to see him outside of that Auburn offense, outside of that quarterback situation, to see what he could be. He's already one of the fastest players in the NFL. He has that type of speed. But now it's all about development and becoming a more well-rounded player. Needs to be more reliable finishing catches. And you want to see, just more plays on his highlight tape. For a guy with that type of speed, you kind of expected more. 117 career catches, only 11 went for 25 yards or more. So I think he has it in him. It's just going to take a little bit of time to develop him and, get the rest of that talent out of his ability.
Dane, it's interesting. We probably talked about Wills and Delpit as much as we talked about Newsome and Owusu-Koramoah, and they both end up, in the lead up to last year's draft, it was obviously we talked all the tackles, but towards the end it was all Wills, and then Delpit was constant. We end up with both of them. Same thing here with, I would imagine of all the times we had you on, we talked most about Newsome and Owusu-Koramoah were the two kids we talked about the most, and they both end up here. So it's all kind of feels like it's gravy after that, but there's some incredible substance here. I wanted to drill in a little bit on Schwartz with you, because one thing Nathan and I talked about in the lead up to the draft was if we could, even right after the loss to Kansas City, I'll never forget Z coming on and going, speed. And this kid has it. The way he's used at Auburn in that kind of gadget offense and the quarterback limitations that they have there, what I'm curious about is one thing that I've been pretty adamant. If you could have a guy who does what McCole Hardman does for Kansas City, just run 10 nines a game. That will open up things for just make defenses go, wait a second, 10's on the field, he runs 4-2. Where's he at? I'm with you. He's not going to catch 50 balls here or anything like that. But if he can just provide that threat 10 times, can he do that? Isn't that what is right with the doctor ordered for this organization right now?
Yeah, especially, in 2021, what you're looking for, you're going to have to manufacture touches for him. That's going to be part of it. But even if it's simple bubble screens and, simple comeback routes and just, you're not trying to, do anything, out of the box here with him. But when you take advantage of that speed and, send him deep, with some of those go balls. And if you put it on tape where he's going to win deep down the field because of that speed, that's going to affect how defenses play the Browns when he is out on the field. And so use him across the formation, get creative with it. There's a lot of fast guys in the NFL. It is not a stretch to say he is among the fastest players in the NFL already right now. That is not an exaggeration. He has that type of speed. And it's not he did have a lot of drops last year. I think 8 drops, but he did also lead the team in catches. So it's not like he's just a complete, project. There are elements of his game that I think will translate pretty quickly. It's just, you want to see him just become more well-rounded, use that speed to more of his advantage. And I know that, teams are excited to get him outside of that offense at Auburn to see what he could do. He's still 20 and a half years old. He's a young player. And that's why I think this is really a pick when they look towards the 2022 roster, 2023 roster. That's where I think this pick really comes into play. But definitely, we're going to see him on the field here quickly. Just that element of speed alone is something that they can use to their advantage.
All right, let's talk about the interior of the defensive line. That was a little bit of a question mark, and it's now been answered kind of emphatically. All of a sudden, there are a ton of defensive tackles in the room for the Browns. They went into the draft with 4. They now have 8, a couple of veterans being added in, and 2 rookies, Tommy Togiai, and then undrafted Marvin Wilson. Talk to me about those 2 guys, what they bring, and all of a sudden I feel like there's going to be a heck of a battle now in that defensive tackle room.
Yeah, Togiai is really interesting because he's under 300 pounds, and he ran a sub 5-second 40-yard dash, but he's not a great pass rusher. That's not what he does. His game is all about stopping the run, being powerful against the run. He had 40 reps on the bench, which kind of just shows his strength. And he was disappointed by that number. He is a guy that can stack blocks, find the football, make plays in the hole. That's what he does very efficiently. It's really just clockwork for him. It's what he's very comfortable doing. Does he need to get better as a pass rusher? Yes. In terms of using his hands, in terms of just breaking down the rhythm of blockers to be disruptive in the backfield, he can get better in that area. Only 8.5 tackles for loss in his career at Ohio State. But anybody that watched the Buckeyes down the stretch last year knows he was the MVP of that defense. The way he played into the Big Ten championship game against Clemson, he was unblockable. And then how much they missed him against Alabama in the national title game. So Tommy Togiai, no doubt about it, should come in and be part of have a really strong presence as part of that rotation, especially in the run game. And then Marvin Wilson, former 5-star guy, talent has always been there. It just seems like he kind of tailed off over his career at Florida State. He was a big-time performer as a junior, and then his senior year was very up and down. And, effort, consistency, not what you wanted to see. But, again, the talent is still there. For a guy that's 6'4", over 300 pounds, he moves fairly well. He's a little tight in his movements, but he's a guy that, the Browns paid him a lot of money as an undrafted free agent for a reason. There's a lot to like there. And I think part of, all the turmoil that happened at Florida State with the coaching staff and, they changed defensive coaches over and over. And, I think that Marvin Wilson got caught up in that a little bit. And so I think that, was he good enough to be drafted? Absolutely. And so I think the Browns are really banking on that and would not be surprised at all if he's able to make this team.
Yeah, I talked to some of my buddies down at Florida State with Wilson and echoed a lot of the things Dane said. And I don't think that we properly, because it's a program that's fallen off a cliff, Dane, that we don't properly understand how dysfunctional it's been at Florida State the last 3 or 4 years while Marvin has been there. And he was the #1 defensive tackle coming out of high school. And just really dysfunction, even week to week last year, whether they were going to play or not. Remember having the Clemson game? Clemson traveled to Tallahassee and then said, hey, get back on a plane. We're not playing. So just a weird season across the board, but a really high-end talent. I wanted to ask you about another guy we signed today, Malik Mcdowell. I certainly remember him from Michigan State, and I know he's had some trouble off the field, obviously, and he has made amends on that front, and we feel very comfortable from a front office in terms of, and those are Andrew Berry's words, not mine, in terms of where he's at. But what do you remember from him from his time at Michigan State? Second-round pick of the Seahawks a few years ago and just 24.
Really, the only reason he was a second-round pick is because of some of those questions. Consistency questions, off-field questions. If he checked all the boxes in terms of in those areas, he would have been a top 10 pick. I mean, ability and talent has never been the question for Malik McDowell. He is a guy that jumps off the page immediately because he's huge. He's 6'6", 300 pounds, but he has quickness so he can knife through gaps. He's very active and violent with his hands. And of course, I'm going based off of what I saw at Michigan State.
Sure.
So that was, a long time ago now. We just don't. It's going to be interesting to see him back on the field, to see what he looks like. What his body, what his mentality, where is he in his development? But a few issues away from the field, and hopefully he's ready to go because talent has never been the question with him.
That's what I'm saying. There's a lot of talent all of a sudden in that room.
Listen to those three guys that we just went over.
Yeah, those three you went over. Elliott, who they picked in the third round last year. And then you've got the veterans Billings and Jackson, not to mention Squire. Squire's been in the league for 9 years. That room
I remember
is insane.
Back in the 2017 draft, I remember talking with a scout. It was like mid-season. It was like October or something. And he told me that he thought the three best players in that upcoming draft class were all defensive linemen. Myles Garrett, maybe it was Derek Barnett, maybe it was the other guy, and then Malik McDowell. He said those are the three best players of any position in that entire draft. So, it goes back to what I'm saying. Talent. He has it. It's just all about, getting his mind right, harnessing the talent on the field. And, it's funny how that all of a sudden that depth chart looks a lot different.
It's wild to see there. Wanted to ask you about Felton because he's kind of an intriguing one to me that feels like he could become a real chess piece in this offense with his ability to run the ball, but also to go out into the slot, flex out of the backfield, and be kind of, a true third down back, the likes, like a Duke Johnson had been here, like before that Dion Lewis, a guy like that, or a James White for the Patriots. Is that how you see Felton?
Yeah, the name that I keep coming back to is Nyheim Hines and the way that Indianapolis uses him, because he line him up out wide, let him run routes. He can do that. And it's interesting because he started, he keeps going back and forth between receiver and running back, and that's going back to high school. He keeps transitioning back and forth, and it's not because he can't do one or the other. It's just because he's so good at both that he offers you that, a different dynamic. And he led the Pac-12 in all-purpose yards last year as a senior, and I think that he didn't test overly well, and I think that turned off some teams. But that's to the Browns' advantage because they're able to get him in the 6th round because at 5'8.5", 190 pounds, he ran a 4.59 in the 40-yard dash. His jumps were not impressive at all. The short shuttle, the three cone, not impressive. But when you watch him during Senior Bowl practices, running routes, getting open, finishing catches down the field, you watch him. When he has the ball in his hand, he looks like a natural ball carrier. And so I think there are a little questions there about how exactly do you deploy him. What situations do we need to keep him in, that type of thing. But he can make plays, and he played a lot faster on tape than I think what he showed at the pro day and some of those testing numbers.
Dane, get you out of here on this one. We haven't talked about our 2 5th-rounders yet. If you could just weigh in a little bit on Tony Fields and Richard Lecount out of West Virginia and Georgia and what you see in those two guys.
Yeah, and Richard Lecount, similar to Felton, where the pro day and the testing numbers were just disastrous. And I think that there were some around the league quietly, fist pumping when they saw some of those numbers, because instead of being a 3rd or 4th rounder, all of a sudden, okay, we might be able to get Lecount a little bit later. And I think that's kind of the attitude the Browns had. They know he's a good player because that's what the tape says. But he goes to the pro day and, runs it was like a 4.76. And so just not what you want to see from a 196-pound safety. But again, you watch the film and you see a guy who has range. He's running the alleys. He can play the sideline. He moves really, really well. And he has an offensive background, and you see that with the way he attacks the football. Love the pursuit that he plays with versus the run and the pass. And you love the football character. This is a guy who got banged up. He was hurt because of an off-field issue where it was a traffic accident with a dirt bike. And even though he was banged up, it was kind of like the Landon Dickerson situation where he got on the field for the final play of the national title game. Well, it's similar with Lecount. He got on the field for the final play in the bowl game against Cincinnati. That's how much the coaches felt about Richard Lecount. And then Tony Fields, one of the more instinctive players at the linebacker position in this draft. He's undersized. There's no way around that part of it. 6 foot, 222 pounds, but he's in the right place, right time. He was really productive at Arizona, and then he transfers to West Virginia for his final year. And really quickly, he became the leader of that team. And the coaches really talked highly of the impact he made in a very short time. He led the team in tackles. He was a guy in a new conference, a new scheme, a new coaching staff, and he didn't miss a beat. It was just a big-time performer for them. And it really comes down to his instincts. He's not a great take-on player. He's not a guy that necessarily is going to be a banger inside, but a run and hit weak side linebacker who has the instincts, who has the speed, that's Tony Fields. And so I really like that pick in the 5th round.
Dane, you're the best.
Yeah.
We can't thank you enough for the entire lead up to this, for coming on today and breaking it all down for us and all. You're the official draft correspondent of Cleveland Browns Daily. If you're willing to take that honor, we'd be happy to dispose of it.
Add it to as many titles.
Andrew Berry makes it a lot easier for me when he picks good players. So, it makes it a lot more fun when we get to talk about these guys. And I tell you what, between last year and this year, Browns fans can certainly be optimistic with some of these additions.
You're the best, buddy. Appreciate you.
All right, guys. Take care.
All right, that's our buddy Dane Brugler, who, 2 years in a row, nailed our pick.
Yeah, because he's darn
2
good.
years in a row. Yeah. Darn good. Yep, absolutely. Still so much more to come. You're listening to Cleveland Browns Daily on 850 ESPN Cleveland. So all told, from last Wednesday till through yesterday, how many hours did you put into draft coverage? You and how many hours there, Z?
And Gibbe was there for every single one of them.
Sure.
Let's see. 2, 4, 6, 10, 17, 20, 21 and a half, 22 from Wednesday on, and then if you count Monday night, we had an extra hour on Monday night too, so 23 just with those days. And I'm probably forgetting a couple Browns lives. Yeah. Of on
content.
air.
You've earned a vacation. You've earned a vacation.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I will take it.
Yeah. Good
I will
job.
take it. Going to the sun. I'll miss you guys.
Enjoy your time.
Maybe listen. Last time I went to Florida, we ended up with Jadeveon Clowney. Who knows?
Right. You're not bringing the Comrex this time.
No, I'm not.
Don't do it.
Nothing is. I don't believe anything is that imminent.
No, just live a little bit, buddy. Well-deserved vacation. Great job out of you over the course of the weekend. Certainly.
Thank you.
We will be back the rest of the week. We'll have some luminaries filling in with me throughout the week. Gibbe will be here with me. So the two of us will hold the fort as you vacation.
Let's go.
And enjoy yourself. Much deserved. So this is your first Friday.
This is indeed.
Now.
This is like
your actual Friday, actually. Yesterday was your boy. What a week!
What a week! And then and then I'm on vacation for a first Friday, Thursday, real Friday. Then I come back. It's the weekend. It's great.
Then you're set. Beautiful, beautiful. Good job. Enjoy your time. Well deserved. We are back tomorrow. The next level is coming up next.